I'm John Mark Dempsey, and we're having a second cup of coffee here with Hopkins County Master Gardener Ronnie Wilson. Ronnie, good morning to you. Yes, sir. And we have of course, we have a topic to talk about each time that we sit down with Ronnie. And Ronnie has brought in a topic to discuss the dreaded and feared fire ants.
Yes.
Well, they're bad, aren't they?
Well, people may think fire ants are really bad this year, but I think it's due to the rain and that the fire ants build their nests underground. With all the water in the soil, the ants move up, and so you'll see more mounds. There's not really more ants, they're just more visible. They've always been there, but they've been kind of hidden.
Well, you know, I'm glad you said that, because I do seem to be seeing more mounds.
Yes.
Maybe they're smaller mounds, but I'm seeing them in many different locations.
So that gives you an idea of how many fire ants are actually on your property. They stay hidden pretty well.
Gosh.
But the Texas AgriLife Extension Office has a program that I can testify really works to control fire ants.
It's called two-step program.
The Texas two-step, just like the dance.
There's some other things that go by that name too. I think.
I'm sure there are.
Sounds familiar. But I have heard of this before, and I'll tell you, I'm more familiar with the second step, which is to treat each mound individually. But the first step is to broadcast fire ant bait over a wide area, maybe an entire yard?
An entire yard. I use a handheld spreader, just a little crank thing, set it on the lowest setting. And as I did this the first time, I could not believe that this was going to work, because I'll see 3 or 4 granules with every crank or every step.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this is just not enough. I went ahead and did it, and sure enough, fire ants are such voracious critters that they will find little bits of the bait, take it back to the mound, feed it to the queen, and it does work.
Wow.
The second step, like you were talking about, I call whack-a-mole.
Right.
You go and treat every mound.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the Texas two-step, but that's a couple of weeks later. Any mounds that are left, treat them, a tablespoon or so. And you'll see 80 to 90% control using this method.
Yeah. Now, in the first method that you're discussing, which I think is less familiar to most people, certainly less familiar to me, where you broadcast the bait, is there a special kind of fire ant bait that you use for that? Is it different from what you would use in treating the individual mounds?
No.
It's the same.
Yes.
The same stuff.
My favorite is Amdro. I've had success with that.
Yeah.
Other ones you can buy at just about anywhere come from Spectracide, Ortho, and Fertilome. It's basically the same product, a granular insecticide, and broadcast it very lightly. The ants will bring it back to the mound, and you're halfway done.
Well, that is interesting. The same product.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, you would come back and treat individual.
Right. Give it a couple of weeks to work for them to do their job and kill themselves, basically.
Now, you made the point here that temperature should be between 65 and 90 degrees, which is not too difficult this time of year.
This is prime time.
Yeah.
The only other drawback is make sure it's not going to rain for a day or two.
Well, that's been a problem, hasn't it?
It certainly has.
Of late. That has been a problem. And as you say, you don't need much bait for this broadcasting.
No,
treatment.
Very little. Very little.
Is it on the package that will tell you how much per square foot, or?
From what I remember, it just says use the lowest setting on your broadcast spreader.
Great. Okay. And then I think a lot of us are familiar with treating the individual mounds. There's another thing, I don't want to spend too much time because we're limited on the amount of time, but there's something called Insect Growth Regulator, IGR, which is a spray kind of thing. You say it's more expensive?
It's a lot more expensive, and it takes a lot longer to work. Since it's a liquid, you have to have sprayers, and since you're spraying an insecticide, you need protective clothing.
Right.
And I think the granular broadcast and treat the mounds method works a lot better, and it's a whole lot cheaper.
And as you say, then you can't completely eliminate them.
Oh, that's right.
But so it's a matter of just of control.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So Ronnie's plant of the month is Queen Anne's lace. This is a wildflower that we see just anywhere.
Everywhere. I bet there's not a person in Hopkins County who hasn't seen Queen Anne's lace growing along the side of the road or highway intersection, or sometimes even a vacant yard.
Yeah. And these are, when we first discussed this, I thought it was something else, but these are large white flowers.
Yes, they get good size, softball size.
Oh, yeah.
They're umbrella shaped, and the stems are 3 to 4 feet tall, so they're very noticeable.
And as we've discussed before, whether something is considered to be a weed or a wildflower is owing to the point of view of the beholder.
The eye of the beholder, exactly right.
So some people actually do cultivate Queen Anne's lace.
I've seen the seeds for sale from wildflower stores.
It would make a good ground cover, wouldn't it?
Possibly. I mean, the plant is very hardy. It blooms from May to October, so you'll have these tall white flowers throughout the season.
But you say it's invasive.
It's very invasive. Each little flower head can contain up to 1,000 seeds, so it germinates itself readily.
Okay, Queen Anne's lace. Ronnie, thanks for having a second cup of coffee.
Well, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Ronnie Wilson is Hopkins County Master Gardener, as you well know. I'm John Mark Dempsey, and this is KSST.